The world doesn't see you yet. And that's good because that's when you're becoming dangerous. So this was the very idea that was in my head during the years that nobody noticed and nobody clapped for me. This is when you build in silence, and this is where nobody notices you, nobody really cares about your effort. But the truth that you gotta really accept here is everyone's living their own lives, and the world doesn't owe you any forms of attention. It doesn't owe you the applause or the opportunities that you think you deserve. And this is something that I pretty much had to learn the hard way. And today I'm gonna be trying to unpack what took me the past 6 years to figure out. Hey, my name is Deric Yi, and I've been building tech businesses for the past 5 to 6 years, and I've bootstrapped myself to almost 100,000 in USD per month in revenue. And now I'm trying to dive deeper into the world of digital tech and AI. But trust me, none of that happened by accident. And by the end of this video, you're gonna understand the one mental shift that separates people who remain invisible from those who become impossible to ignore. I'll also show you how I built my own foundation, the kind of mental models that I use to drive my life, the tools that I use, as well as how you can apply and start right now. So let's go. So the first thing that I want to talk about is what I call the season of invisibility. That's this idea that everyone wants to be heard, everyone wants to be seen, and everyone wants to feel to a certain extent important, right? But here's the paradox, because you don't get seen by demanding attention. The only way you get attention and you get seen, right, this kind of mental shift that you need to have is you get seen by becoming someone worth noticing. Does that make sense, right? So most people fail not because they lack talent. They fail because they probably cannot endure the seasons where no one sees them, when they're all alone in the dark, working in the dark. And I know that season. I've spent so many years in it, right? When I first started Sigma School, when I first learning how to code, when I was fresh out of university, no skills, just me, myself, and my laptop. Like I was spending 9 a.m. to like literally 12 a.m. every single day, jumping around different coding tutorials and videos and motivational content and spending my time on Reddit. And it was all a lonely hustle, right? Nobody cared, right? And when I first started the business, when I first started Sigma School, people were laughing at me saying, this is a dumb idea. How can you give a money back guarantee for teaching people how to code and helping them get jobs with a university degree? But I had a belief, right? I was writing code, I was designing the curriculum, I was doing the sales calls, I was writing the marketing, I was planning out, I was doing the design for different projects that we're including in our curriculum. I was doing customer support. I was literally doing all of it. And there was no likes, no followers, no one watching, no one knew these things, no validation. It's just me and my grind. Right? It feels like I was screaming into the void. But that season of life, that's what builds the roots and the foundation for later on, right? Like a tree, nobody sees the roots, but the roots are what holds everything when the storms come. So I think if you're watching this video, you're probably somewhere in this journey. I think, always keep up the grind, because the only one who fails are the ones who quit. If you don't quit, at some point you're gonna reach it. It's just a matter of time, right? Whether you're playing the right cards or not, but it's all just a matter of time. And I strongly suggest for you to journal, like what I'm doing right now, right? To just journal your learnings, write down, record yourself, write down your thoughts, and see yourself grow, because your future self is gonna look back and just appreciate the entire journey that you've been through. Another idea here is the concept that everybody wants to be a hero, but very few are willing to be one first. So I call this the hero premise, right? It's the idea that in order to win publicly, you have to first see yourself as a winner in private first. When I was still young, like I was 18 years old, I used to look up at the stars from the parking lot outside of my house in Malaysia. And I kept telling myself that, one day people will know what I've built. One day I will be known. And that's not hope, that's certainty. I knew I was gonna get there someday. I didn't know how, but I knew I was gonna do it. And the difference between dreamers and doers are that dreamers wait for permission, but doers, they just go out there and do it unapologetically. As long as you're not hurting someone, as long as you're not breaking the rules, just shooting and then planning over time to achieve the goals that you want and grant them for yourself. So the first dollar that I made was really from an online course that really flopped, right? I made like $97 in total, but it validated one thing. It validated that people will pay for value, right? They pay for solutions. Once they know what they're getting, they're gonna pay for it. And I was able to close cash flow and revenue online without relying on a paycheck. So that meant a lot for me. That was like a turning point in my life where I realized that I was able to build something and monetize from it. And that's all I needed before I decided to double down on building a business. The next point is to acknowledge that private victories always come before public ones. So if you only show up when people are watching, you're not gonna get anywhere. The biggest wins that I've gotten came months before anyone even noticed. Like when I first locked in my 7-figure B2B contract, there was no press release, no cameras, nobody knew. It was just whiteboard, it was just me and them, it was a pitch deck, it was a proposal. And the biggest thing, it was a yes from a client that changed the trajectory of where my business was going. This was back then, right? And private victories are going to be invisible, but they are the bricks that, consistently you stack on top of each other to build the kind of life and the kind of foundations to the business that you want to run. So for me, I am a big fan of tracking everything. So I use just simple Google Sheets to track every client conversation, every failed experiment, every A/B test, every hire, every fire. I use a Google Sheet to track all of my decisions, to kind of make an analysis of it at the end of the day to see what I've learned and what I've missed. So it keeps me grounded, and the data helps me improve way faster. Next thing that I always talk about will be the concept of skill stacking, right? Instead of shortcut hunting. So everyone wants the quick win, but the fastest path to success is to actually stack skills. The concept of skill stacking is the idea that you want to be good enough at several different things and combine them into a unique advantage that only you have or only a few people in the marketplace has. So for a very good example would be to combine the skills of sales with the skills of maybe to be able to write persuasively, to adding on the skills to storytelling, and then adding on being able to code. So when you're able to combine these things, you're not just a coder anymore. You're not just a public speaker anymore, but you're going to be this special identity that you created, that you're on a league of your own, that people can't really put you and compare you as a commodity, because now you're a combination of different skills, right? So for me, it was to learn product, to learn B2B sales, to learn some marketing, and to learn how to code, and finally to learn how to manage a team. And now, of course, AI, right? So I didn't learn everything at once. I actually layered my learnings, because it's going to be impossible to learn everything at once. For me, the most important thing was to learn the sequence of how do you lay things brick by brick, all right? Because if you ended up learning, for example, if I ended up learning how to hire first, right? I would have needed a lot of cash flow to support the team. So for me, when I first started Sigma School, there was only 3 skills that I needed to have, which is I needed to know to a good enough level how to code, I needed to know to a good enough level how to run marketing, get in eyeballs and convert, and I needed to know how to connect the tools together that helps us deliver the course. So knowing these 3 things allows me to now monetize my skill sets, allows me to now monetize my business, and then start hiring people. And once I have that, right, once I have the team running the show, then I have more time for myself to explore, right, new growth opportunities and to explore new skills that I'm more interested in. So always remember, put food on the table first before trying to stack like 10 skills at once. That's not going to work. The next thing would be to play long-term games with long-term people. Most people are transactional, short-term thinkers, right? For me, I learned early on to only focus my time and effort on long-term people, with clients, with team members, with staffs, with co-founders. When I first started with working with one of our partners for Northstack AI, it wasn't really about what they could do for me today. I never think about what they could do for me today, right? I always think about, what's going to happen 3 years down the line. It's about building the trust, right? 10 years down the line, how would this relationship look? I think about every relationship like compounding interest. So I very quickly cut out those who drain you, because it's just not worth spending the time figuring things out with them, learning with them, sharing ideas with them. It's just not worth it if they're going to be short-term people and that are not going to be in your life 5 years from now. Next thing is the concept of it's a marathon and not a sprint. So I have tried sprinting actually for when I first started my business. I was sprinting for 4 years, I think. When I was like 22 to 26, I was sprinting nonstop. It was hustle after hustle. It was doing deals. It was just me grinding 24/7. And I think very quickly you come to realize, I think 4 years is a pretty long time. My stamina is pretty good, right? But I think very quickly you come to realize that you cannot be sprinting forever. It's called a sprint for a reason. It means you go very fast for a short period of time, right? Whereas a marathon is where you don't sprint and you just take it at a more healthy pace, but you can go very far. And I think humans are one of the animals in the animal kingdom that are able to withstand long journeys of hunt, right? We don't hunt in small spurts. We are the creature who will hunt down a prey for days and weeks until they gas out, and then we take the kill, right? So that's how we win, right? We don't win by outshining. We win by outlasting people. Most people give up in the first year. They see cash flow not so good, then they give up. But a lot of business actually comes at the tail, and the growth is actually exponential, right? It's a curve that goes like this, right? It's an exponential curve. You don't. It's not a linear thing, right? When it comes to running business, getting a salary is linear, right? Every month you get, let's say, 3,000 ringgit per month. That's linear. But when it comes to building a business, it's exponential, because in the early days you can do everything from product development to marketing to sales to every single single thing has to be done in the early days, and a lot of investment has to be put into it. You're building the foundations of the business, right? But once the foundations are built, it's just then it's all about delivering on the sale that you've promised, and it's all about scaling the growth that you want to have. That's why it comes early, because you don't need to keep building foundations. The foundations are already built. You're not selling your time, you're selling value, you're selling solutions to people, right? Always remember that whenever you're building a business, I try to think that I'm building something bigger than me, right? Here's the part that a lot of people miss. They think that the business is about them, right? It's not about the applause that they get. It's about your family. It's about your community. It's about your future kids. It's about your staffs. It's about your students, right? It's not so much about you. Don't do it for the wealth. Do it for the vision that you have. Yes, the wealth is important, right? I'm not saying to go broke or whatever, but just put food on the table. Yes, you need to be able to be well compensated for the efforts you're putting in, but always think that, okay, once your base is covered, what's next will be to ask yourself, how can you over deliver for the people who matter? How can you provide and play the infinite game with the people around you instead of just you doing it for the wealth? Yeah, basically that's all I want to talk about today, right? It's about putting in the grind in silence. Don't care about what people think, and don't care about how they see you and whether or not they respect your grind. Don't care about all that. If you have a dream and you have a hypothesis that in terms of what's going to bring you to that dream, right? You have a theory in terms of what would work in the market, go for it. Because back in the days, when I started Sigma School, which is the coding school that could help people get a job or else would give them more money back, it was still very foreign idea in the early days, and people used to laugh at it. So I believed in it. So go for it. If everyone saw the idea, it would have been so damn obvious. Everyone would have been doing it, right? The whole point to this is that you saw something that they didn't, and now the question is whether you're able to execute well enough and whether you're able to grind long enough to see the fruits of labor and to celebrate the success, right? Before giving up. Because the first part, like I said, it's an exponential curve. The first part's going to be very tiring and very difficult. The question is, can you persevere through it and make through it? Okay, I think, keep going. I'll be watching from afar and rooting for you. And I think that's all I have for today. Bye-bye.